Welcome to the fucking power movement. Your place to hear Mike talk shit.
Welcome to the Powell Movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and this week my guest is a nice and polite Canadian. I'm talking about professional snowboarder Matt Belzile. If you don't know about Matt, maybe you've heard about his crew, the Manboys, and have seen the style that Matt and gang bring to the backcountry every year with their movie projects. On the podcast, we talk about how Matt grew up a shy gymnast in a small town in Canada, then headed to Whistler for the first time, and when he got there, he loved it so much he dropped out of college and stayed. We also talk about getting hooked up with sponsors pretty quickly in Whistler, the feeling that he had when he thought he was going to lose all of his sponsors, how he is one of the smartest pro snowboarders out there when it comes to making his money work for him, and of course we talk about the Manboys and even a little Sean Pettit. Before we get into it, I want to ask you to do a few things for me. First, click subscribe wherever you listen to me. To do that, go to my podcast page on the player, locate the subscribe button, and click it. I also want you to follow me on Instagram at The Powell Movement and shoot me an email with any feedback, questions, or concerns that you may have. My email is mike@thepowellmovement.com, and I will get back to you. Finally, please support my great sponsors who make this show happen. They are Evo, Stanley, Spy Optics, 686, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Now, let's talk with Matt Belzile. Well, I'm glad it didn't really work out for us to do this podcast in person. The podcast was supposed to happen a couple days ago, but you wanted to bump it out a few days because you were down with the sickness. And this one's hit you pretty hard. What's going on?
Yeah, I'm not one to let like a sickness kind of stop me from living my life, but man, this one was gnarly. I was like bedbound for a couple of days.
Did you go to the doctor?
No, it wasn't to that point. I kind of figured I'd give it a couple of days and see how I felt. And today is kind of the first day where I woke up and I'm like, okay, I'm on the mend here. I'm getting out of this. So yeah, it's getting better.
Did you not go to the doctor because you were secretly afraid of getting tested for the brew flu?
Yeah, kind of. It's funny because my girlfriend was paranoid about the COVID-19 outbreak.
Yep.
And she like semi-quarantined me in the living room. She's like, okay, you're sleeping in the living room. I don't want to get this. What if you have like the coronavirus? And yeah, it's pretty funny. But after Googling it, I was like, didn't really have the same symptoms, so I wasn't really worried about it.
Are people freaking out up there in Canada? Because I know here, just a few hours away, people are losing their minds.
Yeah, well, Washington kind of has a big outbreak, right?
I guess. I mean, we have like 20 cases or something yesterday. We probably have like 3,000 today, and 12 people have died.
Oh, crazy.
I'm making up numbers. I have no idea.
Okay. Yeah, like people are definitely talking about it up here, but I think Canada only has, last I heard, it was like the cases were in the 20s, so definitely not as bad as what you guys are seeing.
I feel like it's going to go everywhere. There's no way to contain it at this point.
Oh my God.
But I'm not going to get it, and I'm not old, so that's really good.
Yeah.
But let's not talk about your death from the coronavirus. Let's talk about your life. And it all starts in small town USA, except for USA is really Canada. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Ottawa, but I grew up in a small town. So Ottawa is on the border of Quebec. And so I grew up in Elmer, Quebec, which is 10 minutes outside of Ottawa.
And what'd your folks do?
They both worked for the Canadian government.
How is it working for the Canadian government? Is it like in the US where if you know people who work in the government, they have amazing health benefits? I guess you guys all have amazing health benefits, but they have amazing benefits in general, but they don't make a lot of money. It'll always be a little bit more every year, but you're never going to get rich.
Yeah, it is like that. It's funny because Ottawa is the capital of Canada, right? So all the government jobs are there. So it's funny. My brother works for the government and my sister works for the government. So when I go back home for, say, the holidays, a lot of the topics of discussion is how good the benefits are and the pension plan and how many weeks of holidays do you have this year. So I kind of know a lot about that. But yeah, it's definitely like the perks are the benefits. And like once you're in, you'll never lose your job and it's super stable work.
Do you get a pension? Like you work there 20 some odd years and then you get paid for the rest of your life?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they don't have that in snowboarding at all, from what I hear.
No, which the parents are kind of worried about. But I'm kind of like the black sheep that left because I just didn't want to have anything to do with working for the government.
Were your folks also into the mountains and getting the whole family out skiing and snowboarding from the time you guys were kids?
Yeah, we lived about 15 minutes away from a ski hill. So, yeah, a lot of weekends spent on the mountain. And then once I got my driver's license, I started driving out to Mont Tremblant, which was a bigger resort. And they had like a really good park. And that's where I learned a lot of the park tricks and stuff.
Was it skiing first for you, or were you on a snowboard right away?
Definitely skiing.
How long do you ski?
Probably like 4 or 5 years. I must have started skiing age like 6 and then started snowboarding at 12. So yeah, 6 years.
And do you see snowboarders on the hill? That looks cool. I want to do that. Is that how you get into snowboarding?
It was more that I was skateboarding in the summer. And then once the winter rolled around, I couldn't skateboard anymore. And it was kind of like the next logical step is like, well, maybe I should start snowboarding in the winters and skateboard in the summer.
And is it brutally cold winters where you're from?
Yes, like really cold. When I go back for a visit, especially in the winter, I kind of like am amazed that I was able to like live through that, because now that I'm in BC, I'm really accustomed to the warmer weather, and it's crazy how cold it gets there.
On the hill, is it people not worried about how they look, just worried about if they're warm? So many layers, it's ridiculous.
Totally. Yeah. You have to dress like that for the weather. But it's funny, as a kid, I think you're kind of tough. And I remember just not liking to wear goggles. And no matter how cold it get, I never wore them on my face. I would just wear them on my hat to hold my hat in place and just kind of squint down the hill. But yeah, it's just funny when you're a kid, you just can make that happen.
Is it the cold where you can actually do a top to bottom run and you get a cold headache just from the air?
Yeah, like it's kind of like a really humid cold, like it gets straight to your bones. And I remember we'd go up to the hill like after school, and it was like minus 30 degrees Celsius. And we'd do one lap, go in, warm up, and then go back out for another. And that would be like our whole evening.
That's crazy. You guys were diehard, though, at that point. I mean, that was what life was all about.
Yeah, exactly. Totally.
And who are the dudes that you looked up to when you were a Grom? Are there guys at your local hill that you look up to, or is it more just the big time pros?
No, it's definitely the local dudes. I feel like I didn't really get into the magazines or the videos till a little bit later, but I remember the one like local hero was Daryl Lucier, and he would kind of like go off onto the closed runs and built jumps, and eventually he started bringing us up there and taught us the ways. They had like one of those big ramps for the skiing long jumps.
Yep.
And eventually we started building jumps at the end of that.
Okay.
And the ski hill didn't really like that.
Were you guys just like the little derelicts at the ski hill, or were you a clean cut kid? What were you like growing up and in high school?
I was kind of a shy kid, but yeah, definitely hung out with kind of the bad boys that would get into trouble here and there.
Smoke cigarettes, drink beer, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I just kind of loiter around the mall, skateboarding, that kind of stuff.
Did you do any team sports, or is it just dirtbag stuff?
I'm actually a little embarrassed to say this, but I I used to do gymnastics, not really a team sport. I was in gymnastics, and I did it until I was 15.
So you're probably pretty good.
Yeah, it actually got really serious. Like, I think I was doing 20 hours a week of gymnastics.
It's crazy.
So I didn't have like any social life anymore, and I was really getting into skateboarding and snowboarding. And when you look at gymnastics and skateboarding, like those are kind of like polar opposite lifestyles. So yeah, I ended up quitting gymnastics and then going full on into snowboarding.
So how far did you get in gymnastics?
I was competing like at a provincial level and was doing fairly well. I had a group of 5 guys, and I had the same coach for like almost 10 years. So when I had to quit, it was actually really hard because I was kind of like letting down my team.
Hanging up the tights, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And I remember telling my parents, I was like, I think I want to quit gymnastics and just snowboard. And they're like, okay, well, you got to be the one to tell your coach. And that was like one of the hardest things to do at that age. So, yeah.
What was your best gymnastics maneuver, or most impressive?
I was like learning double back dismounts off the high bar.
Okay.
And I remember it being so extremely scary. And the fear of that trick actually helped me quit gymnastics, because I was like, oh, at least I don't have to try that trick and learn how to do it.
So I would think when your snowboard life, I'm jumping way forward, but with the fear of that trick and some of the shit you're doing in gymnastics, when you look at stuff where you're landing in snow, it's not half as scary because of some of the stuff you had to do when you were a little kid.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And even just like the foundation that gymnastics gave me, like the air awareness to like even discipline, I feel like I still benefit from doing that as a kid.
I would think if you're doing 20 hours a week of gymnastic stuff, that you're probably one of the hardest workers out when you guys are on the hill just building jumps because you're used to working hard.
Yeah, for sure.
When you are snowboarding and coming up, is it about competitions? Is there urban going on? What different stuff are you doing? Because I'm sure hill isn't that big.
Yeah, it was mostly competition. It's funny because Ottawa turns out to be like a pretty big mecca for urban snowboarding, but I didn't realize that until years after I left. I moved to Whistler, and then a few years later, I was going back to hit rails for video park segments.
And that was like your first urban in your hometown is coming back to it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
That's so funny. So you're in high school, and when you finish up high school, where do you end up going to college?
I go to college in the next town over, and I'm just kind of doing general studies. At this point, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't have a good direction, but looking back, I knew that I just wanted to snowboard, but maybe at that time, I didn't think it was like a viable option.
Are you winning all the contests you're in, and are people giving you stuff yet?
I was doing pretty well at contests, and I did end up being sponsored by the Burton rep.
I know a big trip for you is you head out to Whistler for a summer and you're going to ride the glacier. How old are you when you do that?
I think I was 21, and it's kind of my first time away from home, and I moved to Whistler for 2 months. I was just going to ride the glacier. And yeah, I kind of never left. I told my parents I wasn't going back to school. They really didn't like that. I actually moved out there with a girlfriend, and then we like broke up 2 weeks after we moved to Whistler. And yeah, I was kind of like, well, I didn't know what I was doing in school. I was kind of just wasting time there. And I was just like really getting the snowboard bug. And I was having some dudes telling me to stay, that I have a lot of potential. And I got invited on to do a little local video. So I had a lot of reasons to stay in Whistler. So I just did. And I just wanted to do well in contest. And that was one of the motivations in going to Whistler for a summer, because I was like, well, if I could snowboard all summer, I'm going to have a leg up on the competition next year, right?
Yeah.
But then, yeah, going to Whistler and being in the mecca of snowboarding, I just like, yeah, ended up staying.
It's around 2005-ish when you moved to Whistler?
Yeah, I think it was summer '04.
And what's the plan? Is it just to snowboard, or is it to be pro, or is it just to ride every day? Where was your head at? Because at this point, I wouldn't think that you think you can make a full-on salary being a pro snowboarder.
Yeah, I think at this point, I thought it was possible because I was seeing people around me making money on snowboarding. And to be honest, I just was so in love with the lifestyle there. I was going up the mountain first thing in the morning, coming off last chair, and then going straight to work. And I don't know, I just had such a tunnel vision for snowboarding, and my snowboarding was improving really quickly because I was snowboarding so much, that I think I kind of had the mentality of just becoming the best snowboarder I could and see where it goes.
So you're learning tricks every day and you're working at night. What kind of jobs do you have in Whistler?
I had a kitchen job. I worked at Mongoli Grill. It was kind of a good gig because it started late, so you could snowboard all day, go home, shower, and then go to work. And you would like cook in front of people, so you made tips. People would leave tips on the ledge, so I'd make a little bit of cash every night and then get a good paycheck.
Whistler's a really fun place. Are you partying pretty hard too at that point? Or are you just focused on snowboarding and work and you have no other time? How does that work out for you?
I think that's kind of what helped me, because I was so focused on snowboarding, and then I'd work, and then it wouldn't leave much time to party. Not that I did. I mean, the summer times definitely partied a little more than the winters. But yeah, I think I was just really focused on snowboarding, and going out late at night and feeling like shit the next morning wasn't like something of interest to me.
And that pays off, because I think you're in Whistler like a year or so before you get hooked up by Westbeach. And how does that all come together? Because they were really big at one point.
It happened because of Tanea Nash. She was working for them. I think she was the team manager. And Andrew Burns was really good friends with Tanea, and he told her about me. And Andrew Burns is the dude that got me into this local video that first year.
Okay.
So it's networking that got me into Westbeach. And then I remember Tanea wanting me to do a trip with them to kind of make things official with Westbeach. And I was like, well, I don't know if I could get off work and da 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 da. And she had to give me like a pep talk being like, okay, Matt, like you got to decide if you want to go for this. And do you want to work at Mongolian Grill for the rest of your life? Or do you want to like, kind of take a leap of faith here? And I was like, okay, you're right. So I totally like ditched work to go on this trip. I mean, I didn't get fired from Mongolian Grill, but they weren't too happy with me.
With Westbeach, did you work for them too?
Yeah. While I was with them, the company went bankrupt and then they got bought out. And then John Cartwright kind of became the dude there and he kind of kept things going and he kept me on the team. But when he was at the realm of Westbeach, it was really small. And so I'd go into the office and kind of help out around the office with kind of marketing things and designing outerwear is kind of cool to kind of learn that side of the business too.
Have you always been a go-getter like that, where the opportunity created itself for you to learn and help out, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to do this, even though it takes up some of my time?
Yeah, I think so. I think I can be opportunistic that way. And, if it could get my foot in the door even more with a brand, then yeah, I'll go out of my way to make sure that they're happy. And with Westbeach, that was definitely a way to do that.
Okay. I think 2006-ish is when you get put on the K2 team or you get hooked up with them. Who are you working with at K2?
Taylor Ritchie wasn't there yet, but Taylor Ritchie, who is now the Canadian K2 team manager, he was on the ride side, and K2 and Ride are the same company. And he kind of helped me get on K2 with the Canadian team manager. I'm trying to remember her name.
Lauren Howard?
Yeah, Lauren Howard. There you go. So she totally made it happen for me. Lauren Howard put me on the team. She gave me a good travel budget. And she put me into Alterna Films, which was kind of my real snowboard project to work for. And yeah, that actually really helped out my career, I think.
That really starts like, hey, I can put out a movie part every year and people want to film with me.
Yeah, exactly. So K2 paid for me to go into Alterna. And then John Cartwright was filming for Alterna too. And John kind of got me under his wing and showed me the ropes on how to film like a proper backcountry video part. And those are like skills that I still use today. So yeah, that was huge.
Coming from Ottawa and moving to Whistler and talking about backcountry video parts, how long is the transition to learn how to ride in powder and land in powder?
Oh man, sometimes I feel like I'm still trying to figure it out. Yeah, it took a while, and building the confidence out there, it was like the hard part. Like when you build a pat down and you're looking at this jump that looks like it goes down into the valley and just trusting what's behind it and even just landing in snow, let alone like trying your hardest trick. Like, yeah, it definitely took a few years and a lot of ragdolling before figuring that out.
There are days where you're going out and everyone's getting shots and you can't land anything and it's just super frustrating the first few years?
Yeah, for sure. Or even worse, you're like, can't snowmobile as good as everyone else and everyone's just kind of waiting for you and you just feel like you're just holding everything up and you're the new guy, and definitely some stressful scenarios.
And everybody has to go through that, right? No one jumps on a sled right away and can get to the zone.
Yeah, exactly. The one thing is sleds have gotten so much better over the years. So I feel like the learning curve on a sled is a lot easier, but yeah, the learning curve to learn how to pick features to snowboard on and snowboard on them well is still really hard.
Now it is time for me to take my first sponsor break. And if you listen to this podcast a lot, I hope you've started shopping at Evo. They're a big part of why I was able to launch this thing, and that's cool. But what's really cool about Evo are the people who work there, the knowledge they have, and the brands they carry. And while they have their in-store experience on lock, the website evo.com, where this thing all started, has all the brands, all the products, a no-hassle return policy, free shipping on orders over $50, and a low price guarantee. And they always have a deal going. For listening to the podcast, I have a deal for you. Evo makes a lot of branded products that are just as good or better than the big brand stuff. When you buy an Evo branded product, enter the code POWEL20 at checkout, and you will save 20% on your branded stuff. And know that 2% of this purchase will be donated to youth organizations in our community. My next sponsor is 686, and they have been independent in the world of snow since 1992. They make some incredible outerwear, but the product I've been most stoked on this week is the Everywhere pant. 686 restocked their #1 selling Everywhere pant and shipped me a pair. I've been wearing them for 5 days straight, and I'm sold. Why are they the best pants I've ever owned? Well, it doesn't get any more comfortable than the 4-way stretch material that 686 is using. And the pants are water resistant, which is a big deal here in Seattle. I also love the integrated lace system. It's like a built-in belt. And I know I say this a lot, but style is the most important thing. And like the rest of my 686 gear, these pants look great on me. And if something's going to make me look better, you can bet it'll work with you too. These pants are perfect for work, the bar, the trail, travel. You can do anything in them. You can get them before they sell out again over at 686.com or finer retailers. My final sponsor during this break is Stanley, the brand that has been a leader in keeping things hot and cold for over 100 years. They invented the vacuum bottle, and you've seen it so many times in your life. You know, that green bottle that kept your grandpa and your dad's coffee hot all day long? Well, Stanley still makes a bottle like that, now in a bunch of colors, and they work better than whatever you're using right now. The reason Stanley is the leader in hot and cold is because their product is better. I mean, they created the category and they keep innovating. But Stanley makes so much more than that iconic bottle. I personally use the water bottles and pint glasses daily, and my drinks stay hotter or colder than yours by at least an hour. You deserve that same quality. Now you can get 30% off all Stanley products by heading to their site, stanley-pmi.com, entering the code Powell and the number 30, all one word, and boom, it's that easy. I just saved you money. Those are some of my great sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. You're filming every year. Is Altera, I forget what the name of that company was because I don't have it in my notes, but was that not bad? Was that movie that you close out?
No, not bad. That was Eddie Graham's movie. Alterna Films, I think I did 3 videos with them, and then the brands were talking more about doing something in the States, and that's how Eddie Grahams and I hooked up, and I filmed for his project. Not bad. That was kind of sweet too, is me and Mark Solers filmed for that. Hayden Wrench was our filmer, and that was kind of my first year out on my own without like the help of John Cartwright or any of the other more experienced riders helping me to film a video part. As kind of the first year where it was all up to me to like go find the features and make it happen.
Before we even talk about the movie, because you closed that one out, but when you say you do an American project, it's based out of Utah, I believe.
Yeah.
Is it tough for a guy on the Canadian K2 team to move up to the global team? Because I figure that's the goal. And I mean, it takes you till 2014 to do that. But is it a challenge because you're Canadian, and if you were born in Bellingham and your life was there, it might have been easier for you to move up the ranks faster?
Yeah, I think in general it is harder for Canadians to kind of make it. I think it has a lot to do with like we're kind of forgotten because we're not always around the American industry. You know, we're not hanging out Utah or Mount Hood in the summer or like even California. But I think connecting with the K2 team manager at the time, the American K2 team manager, I kind of talked to him about what my goals were with K2. And I was like, dude, I want to make the pro team. Like, how can we make it happen? And he kind of really helped out with kind of put a plan in place. And he was like, all right, let's get you into the American projects and kind of go from there. And the first kind of year was getting me into Eddie Graham's video. And then he got me into Standard, and that kind of backfired because I spent a whole year filming for Standard. And in the end, Standard ended up cutting my part.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
Do you find that out at the premiere? Do they let you know early? I mean, because it's got to be a dream come true where you get the call up from Standard, and this is the big time. I mean, you've done some small stuff. This is the big shit.
Yeah.
You're psyched. You probably go into it like, I'm going to work my ass off. I'm going to have a sick part. And how do you find out you're not in the movie? You're in the bonus segment.
Yeah. Well, like you said, there was a lot of pressure because I was like, hey, this is my big moment. I mean, Standard was one of the biggest production companies at the time. So yeah, I did work my ass off, and I spent a lot of my own money traveling around trying to make it happen for this video part. And I do find out early enough. I got a call from my K2 team manager, and he kind of broke the news to me. And when that happened, I was like, okay, well, I'm done. Like, there goes my career. Like, K2 just spent all this money and they're not going to have anything to show for it. Like they're probably going to oust me. But K2 is actually super supportive, and we kind of like made a plan to try to get all the footage and salvage it. And so we got the footage from Standard and we ended up giving it to Eddie Grams, and he made like an online edit that actually turned out really well and did really well. So that kind of saved me. Yeah, it was a rough time because I thought it was over and I had worked so hard for this thing that wasn't going to amount to anything. And yeah, if it wasn't for K2 being like really cool about the situation and kind of working with me to figure it out, then it could have easily have been over for me.
Is it something that's embarrassing for you when you tell all your buddies that you're filming for Standard and then Standard comes out and you're not in it and you have to be like, yeah, I guess I just didn't make it? How does that feel? It's got to be shitty.
It was embarrassing. It was like a huge hit to the ego because I felt until that point, my career was kind of like on the up and up and I was doing really well. And then everyone kind of knew that I was filming for Standard and it was like this big deal. And then, yeah, for it not to happen, yeah, it was definitely embarrassing. And having to like explain to a bunch of people what happened and I don't know why. And I guess my footage wasn't good enough. And then once the footage was out, everyone kind of was like, oh, like, why did that get cut from Standard? And there was never like a really good explanation for it. It was rough times for sure.
Is that how your relationship with Standard ends? Is you're not in the movie and
yeah,
you guys don't talk anymore?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
And then it was kind of a bit of a step back because the next year after that, I filmed for Sandbox, which is a Canadian production company. So it kind of took a little bit of a step back, and Sandbox was a great video and they were doing really well at the time.
At least people still wanted to work with you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I would ask who paid you back then, but we're talking about a bummer thing, so I'll ask about more type of bummer things. And I guess what's interesting other than numbers is what sponsors have ever dropped you in your career?
I got dropped by Quicksilver, and actually it's funny because during the year I was filming for Standard is when Quicksilver picked me up.
Mm-hmm. And they were psyched for a big Standard part?
You know, yeah, part of the deal is like, oh, okay, you're in Standard and K2 and all right, things are going well, like let's put you on. And then the Standard part didn't come out and they're like, oh, what's going on? So that was just, yeah, another cherry on top. And then Quicksilver went through some hard times, and I think there was like they called it like the athlete massacre where they cut like 80% of their athletes when they're going through tough times. So yeah, I lost that sponsor. I think that was like 2013. And that was another time where I thought it easily could have been over because I think at that time I was nearing 30 years old and I figured K2 would want me to have an outerwear brand and I just couldn't find anything. I think it took me like 3 years before I finally landed on 686 and Pat and I started getting a good relationship.
There was also a strange time with K2. I was working there, so I kind of know some things that were going on behind the scenes. And a lot of the athletes had their contracts bought out one year. And it was just like a strange situation where it wasn't like people were cut, but we're going to buy you out and then we're going to re-sign you in a year or two. Were you part of that whole situation?
No, but it's funny you mentioned that because I totally remember that happening. I know there was a couple of years where I was kind of like half contract with K2 Canada and then the other half was with K2 USA. And I think it was during that time, so I didn't really get affected by that. But I remember a lot of the dudes were kind of stressing about that and, you know, a lot of like questions, what's going on? Am I even going to get re-signed in a year or two? Yeah, I feel like when that happened, I think a lot of athletes did kind of end up falling.
Falling like their careers didn't come back?
Yeah, a lot of dudes just didn't get re-signed.
Yeah, it was a crazy time within that company, and I think everybody was trying to hold on to their jobs. But that happens when it's a corporate company. Right now they're doing well, so I don't think people will have to deal with that anytime soon.
Yeah, let's hope not.
But if you look at your career, and let's look at the first part of your career, say like to 2011, and you compare it to a Tim Hortons manager, the Tim Hortons manager is probably going to make $50,000 a year US. Is that better or worse than what you were doing back then in snowboarding?
$50,000 a year, that's better. Definitely better.
And what about now? You finally become a K2 Pro in 2014. First, what does that mean? Is there a bump in pay and more expectations, or are you just on a different spot in the website?
Getting Pro on K2 came with, a good bump. It came with like a 3-year contract that was probably the best contract I've ever gotten.
Well, it's great because you have security.
Yeah, exactly. It was like for the first time, I wasn't on a yearly contract. I was like, wow, 3 years, that seems like so long.
If you're on a yearly, that means the brand, they believe in you, but they're not investing in you in your future. They're just going to be like, we're going to have them for this year. If we have money, we'll keep them next year. But if we don't, his contract's up.
Yeah. Or like, you're on a year contract, so you better have a good year.
Every year's a prove it year.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, to answer your question, yeah, it came with a good bump and some longevity,
And a different spot on the website.
which is the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
Is the spot on the website.
So you're doing better than a Tim Hortons manager now in snowboarding. One thing you've been known to be really smart about is your money. And I think you've been smart about it since you were younger. The goal for you is to never have a job, just to get money coming in every month, which sounds like a dream. When did you start taking your dollars from snowboarding and start making it work for you?
I think I got really lucky with this, but it was in the midst of the 2008 financial crisis. And I had won a contest, and I think I had like $10,000 in the bank, and I wanted to invest it because my parents were telling me, well, what are you going to do after snowboarding? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to have to get a real job. And I just really didn't want to believe that. So I was kind of like searching for alternatives, and I kind of fell into investing. And I was reading about investing, and the things I was reading is that things go in cycles, markets boom and then they bust. And when they bust, that's the time to buy. And so I was reading all these books about it. And then the 2008 financial crisis happened and everything just hit the floor. And I was like, oh my God, it's time to buy. So I started picking up stocks here and there. And then when you look back, it was like, that was probably the best time in our recent history to buy stocks. So it really helped out.
Did you buy properties as well?
No, I started with stocks. And then once those grew to a good amount, I was able to muster up a down payment for my first property.
Over the years, how many properties have you bought?
Well, currently I have 7 properties.
Whoa.
I bought 8 properties. I've only sold 1.
Are they all in Whistler?
No, actually, sorry, I sold 2 properties. I did have one in Whistler and I sold it recently. And now my properties are in Squamish and in Elmer, the hometown that I grew up in, because BC got too expensive. And my criteria is that I want to buy a property and have the rental income cover all my costs and have a little bit of profit left over.
Sure.
And then Squamish and BC in general just appreciated so much that wasn't really a viable thing anymore. So I started buying back east.
And how old were you when you started making these investments? Were you like 22, 23?
No, I was a bit older than that. When I was buying stocks, I was probably like 24, 25. And then my first property I bought when I was 29 or 30. Yeah, I was 30 when I bought my first property.
What inspires you to do this when you're that age? Because I'm guessing it's not the Manboys crew that you're a part of.
Well, it's kind of like you said, I've been blessed with this like amazing lifestyle of snowboarding every day. And I think that once the sponsor train ends, it's not something that I want to deal with going to find a real job. I want to be able to keep snowboarding every day and having this freedom that I have now. I would hate to like have to take a massive step back. So my whole goal with my investing is to replace my snowboarding income with rental and investment income.
So are you in a position now that you wanted to be when you first started buying shit where, barring an act of God, you're in a position where you won't have to work and you can collect checks every month and live that lifestyle?
Yeah, I think right now, if all income stopped coming in and I could only live off my investments, I'd be able to live like I'd have all my expenses paid for, but it wouldn't be a very glamorous lifestyle. It'd be pretty frugal.
Would you stay in Whistler?
Well, I'm in Squamish now. I moved to Squamish this summer, actually, but I'd stay in Squamish for sure.
Okay, because, when I saw you last, maybe the summer or two ago, I was in Whistler. You were living with Sean Pettit.
Yeah.
You've already got 8 properties at this point.
Yeah.
And why live with Pettit? Why not have your own pad?
Well, that was part of it. The cheaper you make your life expenses, the more money you get to invest. And then the more that invested money can make you money in the future and in the form of freedom, right? So, yeah, living with Sean was cheap. I just rented a room there. And I mean, not that I hated living there. It was an awesome house, and living with Sean and Jody were like nothing but fun memories there. Yeah, it's definitely just a way to get the most out of my income and invest as much money as I could.
Speaking of Pettit, he's a snowboarder now. He's also a pro skier. Does he go on K2 snowboard trips with the snowboard athletes?
He does. He totally does. He went on a snowboard trip last year with like Jay Cusick and Curtis Cizik, and he killed it. It's crazy. I'm a big fan of Sean. Like, he is so good on a snowboard, and like the courage it takes to be at the top of the skiing game and being like, okay, I'm just going to snowboard now and crush it. That's insane. Yeah, he's so good.
When you say crush it, though, when you say he's so good, is he so good for a skier and this thing's more of a novelty, or is he just so good he's that good?
No, he is that good, especially on side hits and riding the resort and like the wizardry that he has. I mean, he's short and powerful, and I get jealous of the type of tricks he can do. He's so nimble on a snowboard. It's incredible.
It's time for my final sponsor break, and the first brand I'm going to talk about is Spy Optic. Based out of Southern California, Spy is the intersection of style, party, and technology. They've been supporting snow, skate, moto, wake, and more for as long as I can remember. And some of the best athletes in the world, like Phil Casabon, Eric Jackson, and Tom Wallish, proudly represent Spy. The reason why the best want to be on Spy's product is because they have been creating goggles and sunglasses that look better than everyone else's, and the Happy Lens outperforms any other lens on the market. I don't have time to walk you through the tech, but next time you're at the shop, try on a pair of Spy goggles or sunglasses and see how much better the lenses are compared to what you're using right now. And check out how much better you look. Don't thank me yet. Thank me after I save you 20% off anything on the Spy site. You know the drill. Go shopping on spyoptic.com, then enter the code TPM20, that's all one word with the number 20, when you check out, and you'll enter the Save and Support program. You save money and support me. And it's easy. Spend $1,000, enter the code, and you only pay $800. My final sponsor is the 10 Barrel Brewery, and they have been brewing beer out of Bend, Oregon since 2006. And since they started brewing beer, they are committed to skiing, snowboarding, biking, and drinking beer outside. While I see a lot of copycat brands out there lately trying to mimic what 10 Barrel is doing in the outdoor space, no one puts their money where their mouth is like 10 Barrel. This year, they produced both a ski and a snowboard movie. The ski movie is Watch This, featuring Lucas Walks, and then they have Hold My Beer, a snowboard movie featuring Curtis Cizik. They're also holding 3 hella big air events, where there's big prize money for the riders and a party for everyone else. They support a team of world-class athletes. They have a snowmobile bar, their Beer Cat, and I've seen some images of a mobile jump that looks super dangerous, but that's what 10 Barrel is, dangerous and fun. You can find out about all the events, the Beer Cat, and a whole lot more over at 10barrel.com, and next time you pick up a 6-pack, make it a 10 Barrel and drink it outside. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. Your lifestyle, given that you are working really hard when you first get there and there's not that much time to party, in your mid to late 20s, you're a pro snowboarder, you've got money coming in. Do you live in a party house? And is it the standard booze, weed, and mushrooms that happens in most ski towns?
Yeah, I kind of did live in a house like that, but it was kind of easy for me not to be a part of it because I would snowboard all day and then I'd go to work and then I'd be too tired to do anything else. And it was easy for me not to get involved.
There comes a point, how old are you when you don't have to work anymore? Or do you always work to have more money to invest?
No, I did quit Mongolia Grill eventually. I think I was probably 25 or 26 when I stopped working. I did work the odd summer job when I needed money or if I was feeling motivated. Before I bought my first rental property, I worked all summer to kind of muster up a lot of cash in case of emergencies or to make my finances look good to the bank. But I definitely had my years where I partied. I lived in the village for about 4 years. And the first couple of years that I lived in the village, it was really easy to go out and party. Yeah. So, there was definitely some years where I did party.
Okay. But it's never been a driving force in your life. Like you don't have FOMO if you're not out every night.
No.
Back to snowboarding. Video-wise, the next project that you do in your career, I think the last we talked about was Standard, then Sandbox, but then Videograss is firing and you're able to film with them. Does sponsors help line that one up for you as well?
Yeah, that was mostly all K2 and Hayden Wrench who kind of put that project together. That was Enlighten. That was a great project. And I feel like when that project came out, that's kind of when I finally felt like I had gotten my footing back from the whole standard debacle. I was like, okay, this is where I should be again.
You're back in a big film that everybody's going to watch. So
Yeah.
while you didn't get that with standard, you finally do get that with Videographs, and that has to feel good. Then you go and shoot with Transworld, which is another big one. They were a magazine in snowboarding that doesn't exist anymore. And at that point, is that when the Manboys crew is all riding together and it might not be called the Manboys crew, but that's your crew?
Yeah, I think the year after Enlighten, so the year of Enlighten, Rusty Ockenden and I kind of happened to film together. Sometimes we're like, maybe he didn't have a filmer and he'd hop on our crew or vice versa. And we kind of really worked well together. And so the next season, we decided to just hire a filmer together. And we got Chris Rasman involved too. So we're like 3 riders. We went to our sponsors and we got money to hire a filmer and kind of planted the seed for the Manboys, because that year we filmed together, but all of our footage went to different projects. And filming a whole season together, we saw how well we worked with each other and we became really good friends. So the following year, we're kind of like, well, how about we just do our own project and make something cool?
Does the whole thing go beyond the film? Do you guys hang out and cause trouble and do all that kind of stuff together as well?
Yeah, 100%. I consider the Manboys my best friends. Yeah, we hang out all summer. We hang out after riding and we party together. Yeah, we're a tight group of friends for sure.
What is the dumbest thing you've seen one of those guys do?
I mean, I lived with Jody, who I've seen do a lot of dumb things over the years. I'm trying to think of one.
Is he the loose cannon of that crew?
Yeah, he's kind of like the young guy, rookie. I'm not that he's a rookie, but he's kind of like, the younger brother for sure. Definitely the guy that we like making fun of. And then before that, it was kind of Chris. Chris used to be so extremely gullible, so we'd always try to make him believe things that were just outrageous, and he would just fall for it. But he's getting a little wiser after the first few years.
When you look at your riding in the Manboys, your riding evolved from doing everything, competing, urban, backcountry lines, backcountry jumps. And when I watch any Manboys project, it seems like it's become some lines and a shitload of backcountry jumps. How many hours do you think you spend building jumps every winter?
Oh, man, good question. I don't know. I feel like the average jump is probably like an hour and a half build. And how many jumps will we hit? Probably, there's at least 20 hours, I think. But the last couple of years, we've been kind of shying away from building jumps and definitely more into like the line riding or more natty stuff.
Yep.
So that's definitely bringing down our hourly jump building.
When you build a jump, how many tries do you think you get before the landing's ruined and it's time to move to another spot?
Probably like 5 or 6 each. If you have a good landing, yeah.
Okay. So when the Manboys movie comes out, what is that, 2014?
Yeah.
Between the name of the crew and the riding, it seems like there's instant buzz. Did you guys expect that right away?
No, we were kind of expecting to like having to do it for a few years and kind of build hype over the years. But we were like really psyched on how well received it was. It definitely gave us more fuel for the following years.
I would think sponsors want to jump on and support it even more once they realize that it's going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the Transworld Award was huge for us too.
Yeah. And when you look at the Manboys, it's like you guys are your own team. And it's not a crew with huge names, but a ton of talent. And it's like the Manboys became bigger than all of you almost. Do you guys ever feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of joke around that if it wasn't for the Manboys, that maybe some of us wouldn't have careers. Like you said, it's almost like we have this entity that's stronger than all of us individually. So it's helping us in our own individual careers for sure.
And the program with Manboys is to put out something every season, and that's all you're focused on?
Yeah, and we try to change the format. I mean, we've made a full movie. Other times we just make like a 5-series web series.
Yep.
Last year was just a short movie. So we kind of change it up to try to keep things interesting.
What do you think works better in terms of getting eyeballs on it? I mean, the full movie format, that's great if you're going to tour with it, but does it work online? Or is it the quick web series or just a short movie? Have you guys A/B tested everything, or you guys just throwing it out there and seeing if it works?
What does the best is the free online web series or a short movie.
Okay.
With the web series, it was funny. Some episodes get like an amazing amount of hits and then others don't do so well. So it's interesting to see the formats that hit.
What's an amazing amount of hits?
Like 100,000 views. But I think like average is maybe 30,000 views.
Okay.
Yeah. But, personally, my favorite thing to see is like a full movie. I think it's just because of the era that I grew up in and watching all the old movies. There's a lot of nostalgia to that.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, for me personally, I'd love to just make another movie. But I don't know if it's what works these days.
Consuming a movie on a computer screen is a challenge. But
yeah,
if
exactly.
You're going to go see it or watch it on your big screen at home, then yeah, the full movie's the best way to do it. But that's me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm old too. Let's see, how's your body? I mean, you've been doing this for what, like 15 years now?
Yeah, my body's good, man. I'm definitely more mindful of how I treat it and what I put into it. And I'm definitely starting to stretch a lot more and even do a little bit of yoga and definitely putting some more effort into maintaining the bod.
Have you had any major injuries?
No, not as of late, knock on wood.
And you're not a helmet wearing guy either, are you?
No helmet. Yeah, no major injuries, no broken bones. Maybe I don't push myself hard enough. I don't know.
Just coronavirus.
Yeah, just the sickness.
What can you do? Well, I never really end podcasts this way because it's too easy, but I'm going to do it with you.
Okay.
You've been in the game for like 15 years. You haven't had any major injuries. How many more years do you think you can do what you're doing? Work on Manboys stuff, put out a segment every year, and get paid to snowboard?
Honestly, at this point, I feel like I can do it for another 10 years.
Wow.
I mean, sponsors willing, but I feel good. I still love snowboarding more than ever. I still feel like I'm progressing. And to me, there's not really an end in sight, which was a big reason behind my investing is that I just want to keep snowboarding and having the time to do this. So, man, I'll go on forever if my body and the sponsors will let me. So there it is.
Who are your sponsors? Who's paying you to snowboard these days?
So we've got K2 Snowboards, which, has been 15 years, 686, going on 7 years.
Do you have the Everywhere pant?
I do, yeah, crepe pant. I literally wear them everywhere.
Me too.
And then I have Airhole, I have Hilks goggles.
Who?
Hilks goggles.
Who?
Hilks. That's a new brand.
Okay.
And those are the sponsors that are keeping the dream alive.
Nice. Well, at this point, I am going to jump into something I call inappropriate questions. And I get someone that you know, someone that you lived with who's younger than you that snowboards. So it could be Jody, it could be Pettit, but it is Jody. Pettit didn't get back to me. And I wanted to put Jody on as well. Jody has a podcast everyone should check out. It's kind of all over the place at times. It comes out here and there. But when it does, it's pretty funny. It's the Airtime podcast. And I think you can listen to that everywhere. But how do you describe Jody?
He's like the anxious little brother that's asking a million questions about everything that's going on around him.
That's a pretty good explanation right there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to let him jump into question number 1.
Hey, Matt, your long-lost friend here, / roommate / guy who has questions for you all the time about life. Jody, how you doing? I have some questions for you today. First question, why did you quit riding street rails?
Why did I quit riding street rails? Dude, I was just getting more and more into the backcountry. I was loving it more. And then I think rails just kind of lost its lust for me. I also felt like I wasn't really keeping up and I had to kind of decide where to put my energy. And the obvious choice was the backcountry.
But in the early season, you can't really do much backcountry riding. I mean, I'm just on Jody's side here. A lot of guys will just spend December and early January getting their street stuff and then focus on the backcountry when the snow's there.
I would disagree. I think these past winters, I've been getting some of my best shots in December and January. You just kind of have to get your hustle on and the days are short. So you got to kind of know where to go because not everything has sunlight. And December and January are kind of the biggest snow months. So it's also the best time to hit pillows and the stuff in the trees.
Yeah, I guess what do I know? I'm a podcaster. Let me go with question number 2.
Are you down with Bitcoin?
Part of me is down with Bitcoin as this decentralized currency that the government or central banks aren't part of. but I have a lot of trouble believing that it's a viable currency because people are just seeing it as this investment vehicle and aren't using it the way it was meant to be used.
Do you own some?
I do. I have my foot in the door.
When did you buy your Bitcoin?
I bought it in a few years, 2016.
Oh, that's late.
Yeah, it was a little late. Yeah. But it was right before the crazy run up. So what I did is once it doubled, I took out my initial investment and now whatever's left in there is just bonus. So that's kind of how I did it.
All right. I'm going to go with what other investment? Actually, I don't even care what other investments you have. It sounds like you're doing great. Let's go with our final inappropriate question.
What was the lowest point in your snowboard career, and how did you overcome it?
Well, I think we talked a little bit about this, but I think the lowest point, I'm trying to decide whether it was Standard dropping me or just getting dropped by Quicksilver. But I think getting dropped by Quicksilver was worse because all of a sudden wasn't making as much money and things got pretty tight. And the way I overcame it was just sheer hustle. And I told myself I was going to have the best year of filming I've ever had. And this was my last chance. It's kind of do or die. And I just held on, man. I filmed some of my best parts during those years. And that's kind of how I overcame it.
All right, man. Well, I want to thank you for your time. Your career, it's a pretty cool one because when all is said and done, you'll have a 25-year snowboard career. But in 25 years, you'll look back at those days as the good old days, but you'll have all these other investments and everything else working for you that you'll probably be one of those dudes that's so into the business that you can never stop working on making the investments and making the money. I don't know. That's just my take on it.
Dude, yeah, I love it.
But yeah, it's cool to see that in your career. It's been awesome. You have no trace of a gymnast in your style, which is really amazing for a dude who did gymnastics for 15 years. And that should be what you hang your hat on is, hey, I was a great gymnast for 15 years, but my snowboarding does not look like gymnastics. And that's how I'll be remembered. Thank you for your time, man. That's the podcast.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate it. I'm super stoked to do this.
So that was time with Matt Belzile, and he is the definition of what you think about when you think of a polite Canadian. The total opposite of what you'd find in Surrey or any skate park in Canada. Matt is a good dude who had a dream that he fully started chasing a lot later than most pro snowboarders. There wasn't a whole lot of I'm going to move somewhere in high school to shred or I'm going to head to a snow-focused boarding school for Matt. He just loves to snowboard, did it as much as he possibly could, so much so that when he went to Whistler in college for a summer, he decided to drop out of college so he could stay up in Whistler, and he's made a 15-year career out of it so far, and from the sounds of it, he's not slowing down for at least another decade. I wonder how many properties Matt will own when he's done with being a professional snowboarder. It must be nice to be that smart at an early age, and that is going to make life easy for Matt as he gets older. That's the show for this week. At this point, I want to thank you for listening, and I want to ask you to do a huge favor for me. I want you to rate me on iTunes. If you have an iPhone, all you need to do is click on the podcast icon, search for the Powell Movement, click my logo, scroll down until you see the stars, tap 5 stars, and you're done. It's easy. It takes about 45 seconds. If you're on an Android phone, I have no idea how you rate me, but hopefully you'll be able to figure that out. That is all greatly appreciated. What is also appreciated is you supporting my great sponsors who make this happen. They are Evo, 686, Spy Optic, Stanley, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Have a great week, everyone.